want to thank God for every one of you here present. To Sister Louise Patterson, the wife of our leader, Bishop G.E. Patterson. To all the members of the Temple of Deliverance Church, thank you so much for letting us borrow your pastor and allowing him to be our leader. To all the people of the Tennessee 4th Jurisdiction, Bishop Maynard and all who are involved therein. Bishop Patterson was a part of you, the founder of your jurisdiction. To all the members of the General Board, Second Assistant Newell Haynes, thank you, Bishop Chandler Owens, for that excellent introduction. To our Mother Rivers, to the Board of Bishops, Chairman Sheard, members of the Judiciary, members of the Pastors and Elders Council, to all the people of the Lord, especially to our ecumenical guest, Bishop Ellis and all of you. You honor us in such a wonderful way by your presence here on this day. Everybody just reach over and shake hands with somebody. Tell them I'm glad to see you. Now, we've been in church for a long time today. This is the end of a series of services. I know the family is very weary, very tired. But I believe somebody's going to pray as we will share what the Lord has spoken to our hearts. Bishop G.E. Patterson and I met in the late 1950s. We were still in our teenage years. He was my senior in age by 1 year and by length of ministry about 6 months. Even then, he dressed like a preacher, acted like a preacher, looked like a preacher, always wore a suit and tie. 4 of us young preachers during our teenage years rode together from Tennessee to California in my Chevrolet. 3 of us were dressed casually, trying to get across the desert of New Mexico and Arizona. He kept that suit and tie on all the way across the desert. He gave me one of his high school graduation pictures and signed it. At the age of 18 or 19, Bishop G.E. Patterson. Even then, he knew it was his destiny to become a bishop of the church. I was so impressed by his ministry. I was so impressed by his preaching. He would alternate with his father between the 2 churches that his father served, one in Detroit, the other in Memphis. And he was mature and advanced in ministry far beyond his years and far beyond his peers. I was so honored and pleased when we conducted a revival together at his father's church here in Memphis, and also to have him to preach a series of services at my father's church in San Diego, California. And our friendship continued over the years. I married the wonderful May Lawrence, who has labored to bring my visions to pass and who has beautified my work and beautified my life. And a short time later, he married the wonderful and impressive Louise Dowdy, who by her royal presence dignified him all the more. Miss Louise Patterson, without question, has been a loyal, loving protector, caregiver, and supporter of her husband. It's been a wonderful adventure to observe the journey of Bishop G.E. Patterson over the years. He's founded churches, carried on a dynamic crusade television ministry, preached in a host of crusades and conferences, raised the Temple of Deliverance to the level that it's one of the premier churches on the face of the earth. But then, if his career was not already outstanding and illustrious enough, he descended to the highest leadership position of the Church of God in Christ. And for 6 glorious years, he led us. What a joy it was to stand with him, by him, and support him in the leadership of our church. Morning manna services took us to unbelievable levels of inspiration. His annual messages were masterpieces of biblical exposition and insight. His singing took us back to the glory days of the church, and his generosity made him a model of how leaders ought to give back into that which they lead. The positions he led the church to take on war, on abortion, his response to the tsunami and the Hurricane Katrina, the aid he provided for the victims, combined to define Bishop G.E. Patterson as a world-class visionary leader and man of God. Bishop Patterson was, in a very special way, God's man for this day. He loved his God. He loved people. He loved his wife. He loved the church of God in Christ. Now his seat is empty. His place is unoccupied. For the first time in years, he's missing from the ranks of those who are still serving God on this earth and in their physical bodies. How do you cope? How do you function when someone you've loved and someone you've depended upon is missing?